situation in Williams, KTAR Radio, in order to better serve the public interest, is preempting our regularly scheduled programming until further notice. Instead, KTAR 620 will be broadcasting continuing coverage of this crisis in Williams, Arizona. Now back to KTAR News.
This is Barbara Villa. We will now take you live to the field headquarters of the National Guard outside of Flagstaff, Arizona.
I'm Captain Lansing of the Arizona National Guard. Now, this situation we're talking about, the one that's arising from the reported presence of these certain individuals of unidentified nature, I've got to assure you is now totally under control. This cylindrical object, which lies in a pit directly below our position, and I can see it very clearly, is surrounded on all sides by 8 battalions of infantry and armed tanks, mortars, and rocket launchers. Now, all cause for alarm, if any such cause existed, and I really doubt it, is now entirely unjustified. But I can see their hiding place plainly in the glare of the searchlights, and even with their reported resources, these creatures better not try another attack. Now, what is this? There appears to be some smoke, some slight smoke in the woods bordering Bill Williams Mountain. Well, we'll see some action pretty soon. One of the companies is deploying on the left flank. Wait, I see something on top of the cylinder. No, it's nothing but a shadow, I believe. Now, wait. Something's moving. Maybe solid metal, kind of a shield-like thing rising up out of the cylinder. And it's standing on legs, and it reaches above the trees.
This is Doug Ninsel. We've lost our connection with the National Guard. As incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence before us may lead to the assumption that those strange beings who landed in northern Arizona tonight could be the vanguard of some invading force from the planet Mars. We have received reports that what appears to be a 2-mile radius surrounding the object is engulfed in flames. The battle, which has taken place tonight at the WW Ranch, has ended in one of the most startling defeats ever suffered by an army on American soil. 7,000 men armed with the latest field weapons pitted against a single fighting machine of the invaders. Reports out of Flagstaff advise that there may be only 100 or so survivors. The rest are strewn over the battle area, crushed and trampled to death under the metal feet of the monster, or burned to cinders by its death ray. The monster is now in control of the northern area of Arizona and has effectively cut the state in half. Communications lines are down from New Mexico, Utah, Nevada to the Pacific Ocean. Railroad tracks and airport runways in the area have been torn apart. Highways in every direction are clogged with frantic human traffic. Police and Army reserves are unable to control the mad flight. By morning, this mass exodus will have overrun Albuquerque, Los Angeles, and Salt Lake City, causing further widespread panic.
Doug, this is Barbara Villa. We've gotten this late word from the governor's office. As of this moment, martial law now prevails throughout Arizona and southern Nevada. Now, we've just received word from Washington, D.C. that Bruce Babbitt, the Secretary of the Interior, is getting ready to make a special announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have this statement. Excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bruce Babbitt. Arizona is my home state, and I am both concerned and saddened by the events tonight. Now, I shall not try to conceal gravity of the situation that not only confronts Arizona, but the whole country. Let me just say, the concern of your government is in protecting the lives and property of its people. However, I wish to impress upon you the urgent need of calm and resourceful action. Fortunately, this formidable enemy is still confined to a comparatively small area, and we may place our faith in our military to keep them there. In the meantime, must continue to confront the destructive adversary with a united, courageous front, showing that human supremacy on this earth will prevail. Thank you.
This is Bruce Kirk, KTAR 620 News. You've just been listening to Bruce Babbitt, Secretary of the Interior, speaking to you from Washington. Now, here at KTAR, calls keep coming in with reports from the north. We have been informed that radio and telephone communications in the central portion of Arizona has been disrupted due to the effect of the enemy laser on power and electrical lines. People with cellular phones are keeping us posted on the movements of these invaders. And we just received word that astronomers from around the world are reporting continuing gas outbursts at regular intervals occurring on the planet Mars. The majority of these scientists have voiced the opinion that enemy reinforcements are on their way to Earth. We've attempted to locate Professor Richard Pearson of the Lowell Observatory, who has observed Mars at close range. It is feared, though, that he was lost in the recent battle. Luke Air Force Base reports they have lost one jet fighter in combat with the invaders, and 3 of their machines are visible above treetops moving southeast towards Sedona. The creatures are advancing with incredible speed, and they seem to be making a conscious effort to avoid destruction of the cities and countryside. It is apparent their objective is to crush, paralyze, and disrupt communications and transportation. They stop to destroy power lines, bridges, roads, rail lines, airport runways, and telephone and broadcast relay stations.
This is Steve Clausen. We've just received a report from Winslow, Arizona, that campers have stumbled on a second cylinder similar to the first embedded in a section of Clear Creek about 10 miles south of Winslow. U.S. Army ground troops are proceeding from Flagstaff to blow up the second cylinder before it can open and become operational. Luke Air Force Base reconnaissance flights have reported enemy machines are increasing speed, destroying everything in their path. It's believed that they may be on a heading to connect with their allies just south of Prescott. The commander of Luke Air Force Base has advised that a squadron of F-16 fighter jets has been dispatched, and we are patching into their radio transmissions at this time.
Flight leader, this is Command Center. What is your range and heading? Over.
We're right on top of them. Over.
Flight leader, let's take them out and get home.
We have a direct hit base, Commander.
That's affirmative. What's happening now?
It's difficult to see with the smoke. We're making another round to get a better view. It appears they've stopped to repair the one we hit.
Affirmative. Let's get rid of the rest.
Base Commander, we cannot see the target visually. It appears that some type of black smoke is emanating from the area, and our instruments are not registering the targets. Over.
Can you estimate from their previous position? Over.
Affirmative. Base Commander, we are under attack. They seem to be using some kind of...
This is Bart Graves, KTAR 620. We have lost contact with the Air Force Squadron leader. Reports are coming in now that the invaders have been sighted just north of Phoenix and that they are discharging a heavy black smoke. Now, we have been notified that the black smoke appears to be some type of poisonous gas. We are asking people, please do not panic. Jeff Munn is on the roof of the Bank One building. Jeff, what do you see?
This is Jeff Munn. I'm on the roof of the Bank One building in downtown Phoenix. The bells you hear are to warn the people to evacuate the city as these things approach. It's estimated that in the last couple of hours, 1 million people have moved out along the roads to the south and west. The freeways are backed up and automobiles are requested to stay off I-17. I-10 to the south and west looks like a parking lot. We've not received any communications from anyone north of Cave Creek for the past 10 minutes. It appears our Air Force has been wiped out, and we don't know who or what can even defend us from these invaders. This may be my last broadcast. I'll stay with you as long as possible. As I look at the city below me, the streets are jammed, kind of like New Year's Eve. I can see the black smoke in the distance. Wait, I can see one of them now. Now another. It looks as if they're close to the Metro Center area. They seem to be floating like giant, deadly balloons gliding over some nightmare parade. I've just received word that more cylinders have been falling all over the country. New York, Chicago, Texas, Michigan, Kansas. First cylinder is stopped just north of the deck park, probably near Park Central. It appears to be waiting for the others. They've lined up like a group of linebackers getting ready to run over their opponents. They're lifting their metal hands and the black smoke is coming out. This is the end now. Black smoke is drifting over the city. The people in the streets see it and are running over and trampling each other. They are dropping like flies, and the smoke is spreading faster. People are trying to run away from it, but it's no use. It's crossing McDowell now, Roosevelt. It's getting near Van Buren. It's 100 yards away, 50 feet.
KTAR presentation of War of the Worlds, a dramatization of the novel by H.G. Wells. This is a fictional Halloween performance. Our story continues.
My name is Richard Pearson. I don't know who or what may read this as I set down these words on paper. I'm obsessed by the thought that I may be the last living man on Earth. I've been hiding in an empty miner's shack not too far from the WW Ranch in Williams, a small island of daylight cut off by the black smoke from the rest of the world. All that has happened in the world before the arrival of these monstrous creatures now seems part of another life, a life that has no continuity with the present. The lonely derelict who pencils these words on the back of some astronomical notes bearing the signature of Richard Pearson. I look down at my blackened hands, my torn shoes, my tattered clothes, and try to connect them with a professor who worked at the Lowell Observatory and lived in the beautiful community of Sedona, and who on the night of October 31st glimpsed through his telescope an orange splash of light on a distant planet. My wife, my colleagues, my students, my books, my observatory, my world. Where are they? Did they ever exist? Am I Richard Pearson? What day is it? Do days exist without calendars? Does time pass when there are no human hands left to wind the clocks? In writing down my daily life, I tell myself, I shall preserve human history between the dark covers of this little book that was meant to record the movement of the stars. But to write, I must live. And to live, I must eat. I found some stale peanuts in a cupboard and an orange that wasn't too spoiled to swallow. I keep watch at the window. Time to time, I catch sight of one of the invaders above the black smoke. The smoke still holds the shack in its black coil. But at length there's a hissing sound, and suddenly I see a creature mounted on his machine, spraying the air with a jet of steam as if to dissipate the smoke. I watch in a corner as high, huge metal legs nearly brush against the house. Exhausted by terror, I fall asleep. It's morning. Sun streams in the window. The black cloud of gas is lifted. And I realize I'm alive. The scorched meadows to the north look as though a black snowstorm has passed over them. I venture from the house and make my way to a road. No traffic. Here and there a wrecked car, baggage overturned, a blackened skeleton. I push south. For some reason I feel safer trailing these monsters than running away from them. I keep a careful watch. I've seen them feed. Should one of their machines appear over the top of trees, I'm ready to fling myself flat on the ground. I pick a bunch of pine nuts to fill my pockets. I must keep alive. For 2 days I walk in a vague southerly direction through a desolate world. Finally, I notice a living creature, a small red squirrel in a pine tree. I stare at him and wonder. He stares back at me. I believe at that moment the animal and I shared the same emotion. The joy of finding another living being. I push south. I find dead cows in a blackish field beyond the charred ruins of a farmhouse. The silo remains standing guard over the wasteland like a lighthouse deserted by the sea. Astride the silo perches a weathercock. The arrow points south. The next day I came to a town that seemed vaguely familiar, yet its buildings were strangely dwarfed and leveled off, as if a giant had flicked off its highest buildings with a nonchalant sweep of his hand. I reached the outskirts. I found Prescott, undemolished, but humbled by some whim of the advancing unknowns. Suddenly, with an odd feeling of being watched, I caught sight of something crouching in a doorway. I made a step toward it, and it rose up and became a man. A man armed with a large knife.
Stop! Where did you come from?
I come from many places, a long time ago. At least that's how it feels. From Williams.
Williams, huh? That's where all this started. That's where those things landed.
Yes.
Williams. There's no food here. This is my country, all this end of town down to the Verde River. There's only food for one. Which way are you going?
I don't know. I guess I'm looking for people. What's your name?
Carl. What was that? Did you hear something just then?
Only a bird. Wait. It's a live bird.
Yeah, you get to know that birds have shadows these days. Say, we're in the open here. Let's crawl into this doorway and talk.
Carl, have you seen any of them?
They've gone to Phoenix. At night, the sky is alive with their lights, just as if people were still living in it. By daylight, you can't see them. 5 days ago, a couple of them carried something big across the mesa over there. I think they're working on their machines so they'll fly.
Fly? Then it's all over for humanity, Carl. There's only you and me. 2 of us left.
They got themselves in solid. They wrecked the greatest country in the world. Those green stars, they're probably falling somewhere every night. They've only lost one machine. There isn't anything to do. We're done. We're licked.
Where were you? You're in uniform.
I was in the National Guard. It's funny.
This is no more a war than there can be a war between men and ants.
Oh, and we're edible ants. I found that out. What'll they do to us?
I've thought it all out. Right now, we're caught as we're wanted. The Martians, or whatever they are, only have to go a few miles to get the crowd on the run. But they won't keep doing that. They'll begin catching us systematic-like, keeping the best and storing us in cages and things. They haven't even begun yet.
Not begun what?
All that's happened so far is because we don't have sense enough to keep quiet. Bothering them with guns and firebombs and such stuff, losing our heads and rushing off in crowds, screaming. Now, instead of our rushing around blind, we've got to fix ourselves up according to the way things are now. Cities, nations, civilizations, progress, they're done.
But if that's so, what is there to live for?
Well, there won't be any more concerts for 1,000,000 years or so. No nice little dinners or restaurants. If it's amusement you're after, I guess you're out of luck.
So, Carl, what's left?
Life. Life, that's what. I want to live. And so do you. We're not going to be exterminated, and I don't mean to be caught either. Or tamed, fattened, and bred like a sheep.
What are you going to do?
I'm going on. Right under their feet. I got a plan. Men as men are finished. We don't know enough. We'll have to learn a lot more if we're going to beat the odds. And we've got to live and keep free while we learn. I've thought it all out, see?
Tell me.
Well, it isn't all of us that are made for wild beasts, and that's the way it has to be. That's why I watched you. All these little office workers that used to live in these houses, they'd be no good. They don't have what it takes. They just used to run off to work. I've seen hundreds of them running wild to get to work on time for fear that they'd be canned if they were late, running back after work in time for dinner. Little lives insured and invested in case of accidents. On Sundays, worried about the afterlife. The Martians will be a godsend for those guys. Nice roomy cages, good food, careful breeding, no worries. After a week or so chasing about the fields on empty stomachs, they'll come and be glad to be caught.
You've thought it all out, haven't you?
Oh, you bet I have. And that isn't all. These Martians will make pets of some of them, train them to do tricks. Who knows, one may even get sentimental over the pet boy or girl who grew up and had to be killed. Some, maybe, will be trained to hunt us.
No, that's impossible. No human being.
Yes, they will. There's people who will do it gladly. If one of them ever comes after me, pow!
In the meantime, you and I and others like us, where are we to live when these things own the earth?
I've got it all figured out. We'll live underground. I've been thinking about all the different mines and caves around here. You're beginning to see, right? And we'll get a bunch of strong men together, no weak ones.
And you want to include me?
Well, I gave you the chance, didn't I?
We won't quarrel about that. Go on.
We've got to make safe places for us to stay in. Get all the books we can, science books. That's where men like you come in, see? We'll raid the libraries and even spy on them. It may not be much, but we have to learn before... Just imagine this. 4 or 5 of their own fighting machines suddenly start off, lasers shooting right and left, and not a Martian in them. No Martians, men. Men who have learned the way how. It may even be in our time. Imagine having one of them lovely things with a laser beam wide and free. We'd turn it on the Martians. We'd turn it on the people who wouldn't follow us. We'd bring everybody down to their knees.
And that's your plan?
You and me and a few more of us. We'd own the world.
I see.
Hey, what's the matter? Where are you going?
Not to your world, I'm afraid. Goodbye, Carl. Good luck. After parting with Carl, I walked and walked. I got past Lake Pleasant, crossing down the foothills toward Phoenix. Cautiously, I walked along the freeway toward the city. As I walked, I passed cars covered with a black powder, people sitting dead in their seats, looking like a still photograph of a family outing. There was an evil, ominous smell from some of the houses. I wandered past Metro Center and stood alone. I caught the sight of a lean dog running down Dunlap with a piece of dark brown meat in his jaws and a pack of starving mongrels at his heels. He made a wide circle around me as though he feared I might prove a fresh competitor or possibly sizing me up for his next dinner. I walked down the freeway in the direction of that strange powder, past silent buildings and empty stores, past restaurants and gas stations without life. On Camelback Road, I looked in the window of one of the car dealers. and the 1996 models on the showroom floor. I smiled at the irony of, would there even be a 1996? And I kept walking south. I watched a flock of birds circling in the sky as if this were any November day, then went on. I was about to enter the Channel 5 building to spend the night when I caught sight of one of their machines. It seemed to be close, but was probably more in the vicinity of Encanto Park. I suddenly had this insane impulse. I ran wildly from the building toward the park. I crossed the Black Canyon, running toward the golf course. I kept going to the park, over to the lagoon, and that's where I stopped. I could see 19 of those great metal giants standing in a row on 7th Avenue. They were empty, their steel arms hanging limply by their sides. I looked for the monsters that inhabited those machines. My eyes were attracted to an immense flock of birds circling the ground. I walked in their direction, and suddenly, there before me, stark and silent, lay the creatures. Hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from the dead bodies. Later, when their bodies were examined in laboratories, it was found that they were killed by an organism against which their systems were unprepared. Destroyed after all man's defenses had failed by the humblest thing that God in his wisdom put on this earth. A bacteria. Before the cylinders fell, there was a general persuasion that through all of space, no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. Dim and wonderful is the vision I have conjured up in my mind of life spreading slowly from this little seed bed of the solar system throughout the inanimate vastness of space. But that's still a remote dream. It may be that the destruction of the extraterrestrials is only a reprieve. To them, and not to us, is the future ordained, perhaps. It seems strange now to sit in my peaceful study at the observatory writing down this last chapter of the record begun at a small ranch near Williams, Arizona. Strange to see from my window children playing in the streets. Strange to see young people strolling in the park, where the new spring grass heals the last black scars of a bruised earth. Strange to watch the sightseers enter the museum where the dissembled parts of one of those ghastly killing machines are kept on public view. Strange when I recall the time when I first saw it, bright and clean, silent